morning sun shines on the gleaming hide of a muscular ranch horse. The aroma of bacon and coffee drifts from the wood cook stove at a cow camp. Silver spurs jingle as the men and women of the West get set for another day in the saddle. From the heart of Canada's finest ranching country, this is the Spirit of the West with rancher and horse trainer Hugh McLennan and his collection of music, poetry, and conversations with the folks who live and work with horses and cattle in the Spirit of the West.
The winds of change seem to be blowing across the West. Back in 1992, not really that long ago, right at this time of the year, and that was the year we started this program, Vic Piva and the Lloyd Creek Ranch Cowboys were trailing, about 500 pregnant cows, just about 25 miles from the north end of the city of Kamloops up to the ranch headquarters near Pinnetan Lake. But today, with the traffic, that is impossible. But I still love reminiscing with some of the great old hands that I was lucky enough to ride with about those days. And this week, you'll hear some stories from a couple of cowboy legends, Gint Gilrick and Cowboy Hall of Fame inductee Red Allison.
You might get in after dark, have to pinch your tent, everything's soaking, no cook, no nothing, cook over the open fire.
And Baxter Black looks at how a rancher found an innovative way for his injured wife to still open gates, and he'll describe how she got hurt.
And pulled some tendons. It was the result of her perverse need to train young horses.
On the Rangeland News, what kind of summer are we looking forward to?
It is widely expected that this will be perhaps even warmer than 2018.
And last week's guest, Ken Overcast, is in the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight.
Give me some cows to feed when it's 40 below with holes in the knees of my jeans.
On the Urban Saddles and Western Wear Horse Training File, I'll look at ways to keep your horse upright and not losing his footing in some challenging cow work. There's a classic old song of the West from a star of the silver screen cowboy era, and memories of Two Top Hands after a brand new release from a guy who loves the West, but he grew up in England. This is Clint Bradley.
With the embers of the campfire glowing, way down in the evening light, there's a dream of a cowboy knowing that he'll be home tonight. Home is where the heart is, in the land of the tumbleweed, for the creaking of the saddle is all a cowboy needs. 6 gun spurs and saddles, and the dream of a time long past. But as long as it lives inside your heart, the wild, wild west will last. Oh, the wild, wild west will last. The freedom to believe again is a gift that we all own. So saddle up for the wild, wild west and let your spirit roam. Sweet dreams of the prairie roads to return to every night. Oh, a simple dream of a hearth and home. What more do you want from life? 6 gun spurs and saddles, and the dream of a time long past. But as long as it lives inside your heart, the wild, wild west will last. Oh, the wild, wild west will last. He's always with you, even when you're far away. The wild, wild west will call you home, as long as you keep the faith. You don't need a reason, the dream is yours to own. No matter what the doubters tell you, the west will call you home. 6 gun spurs and saddles, and the dream of a time long past. But as long as it lives inside your heart. The wild, wild west will last. Well, now 6 guns, spurs and saddles, and the dream of a time long past. But as long as it lives inside your heart, the wild, wild west will last. Oh, the wild, wild west will last. Yes, the wild, wild west will last. Oh, the wild, wild west will last. Oh, the wild. Yeah, come on, I'm heading west with my 6 gun, my saddle. Won't you come along?
Okay, now we'll take you back to the Drive of 93, a hand-picked group of ranch cowboys and a well-organized crew making the event where about 400 folks came along. We would get into camp, take care of our horses, put up our tents, and then we enjoyed supper at the Chuck Wagon, and that's when I sat down with drovers Red Allison and Gint Gilrick.
I want to find out, first of all, from you guys how the drive went today, and is this a lot different than what you've done most of your life, Gint, this Cattle Drive 93?
Yes, it is. It's a whole lot different. Yeah. Our drive started about the same time in the morning and finished a little bit earlier, or just about the same time. And our crew was quite a little smaller, but this was real enjoyable, and our drive went real well today.
You guys all got clean shirts and clean jeans, and you're all shaved and everything, and look at me. How'd you manage to do that, Red?
Well, I tell you what, Hugh, it's quite a little different, and that's maybe part of the reason we come along, because in the old days, you might get in after dark, have to pinch your tent, wet, everything's soaking, and no cook, no nothing, cook over the open fire. Nowadays, when you come in, everything's cooked. There's even a beer garden. And a fella has a chance to wash up and clean up for the evening entertainment.
Was your bed, did you say your bed was dry last night, Gint?
Well, I wouldn't really say it was. In fact, it was pretty damn damp.
Yeah.
But I was kind of tired anyway, so we slept real well.
Yeah, the only thing I noticed was when I got up this morning, I'd dump the water out of my boots before I put them on, but that was okay.
You always do that, Hugh. You always dump the water out of your boots before you put them on.
A pretty dumb cowboy wouldn't do that.
Well, I don't know if I want to answer that.
Listen, did you ever have occasion to have to spend the night out in the trail and never made it back to camp? Have to sit under a pine tree anywhere that you can remember?
Once or twice I have, and usually it wasn't that nice. And usually it was when the weather was bad, and you were usually soaking wet. Your ropes were stiff, your horses were tied, and there was really nothing was going just right. But we always seemed to survive. So one time we camped under a tree just up above Pass Lake there, when the range station didn't have the house going there, and we got as far as Cannell Creek, and it started to get dark. It was snowing, it was sleet and wetter than heck, and we just got under a big spruce and laid down, and by morning the water was coming down through the trees, and the ropes were stiff and the horses were cold, and things weren't really that good. No. I was riding a horse that wasn't too gentle, and we almost gotten kind of a wreck before we got to going, but we made her to Strong Keel Lake. Oh, yeah. But there was no trail in there then, and it was a whole lot different than what it is today.
Well, Gint had a pretty interesting horse years ago, and he'll remember a pretty amazing story about him when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. The scene is the Drive of 93. About 400 folks, many of them who'd never been on a cattle drive, along with the camp crew, the wranglers, and the drovers. And we'd had a good day. The cattle were settled in the trap. We enjoyed a chuck wagon supper. The campfire was glowing. And the great old cowboy Gint Gilrick's clear blue eyes lit up as he remembered a horse from years ago.
Called him Spider, and he was an awful good horse, but he tried to buck you off pretty often. But once I got him going, why, he was a pretty good kind of a horse. But next day, or 2 days later, we started for Pass Lake with about 200 head of Tronquil cattle. And Harry Willocks was driving one of the old Army 4x4s. So I tied old Spider to the back of that 4x4. when we got up in Prudent Pass, the sagebrush was about 4 or 5 feet high up there, and I told Harry I'm going to ride this horse. So anyway, I saddled him up and got in the middle of him, and things got real western. And he tried to buck me off, but he didn't get that done. But also I couldn't handle him, and I couldn't handle the cows, so I had to give up and ride the other horse then. But when we got him to Pass Lake, why, things kind of changed after that. It wasn't too long, and he was a good saddle horse, and he was big, he was tough.
It might have been a horse some fellows would have given up on, but probably a good thing you didn't.
Well, I think readily agree that they sort of did at Dog Creek, because I bought him for $10, and Red wasn't there when we loaded him. We loaded him in the back of a pickup with a homemade rack, and Norman Worthington was going to tie I put it through the front of the bullboard. He was going to tie him to the frame. Before he got it done, he jumped out of that rack from a standstill.
Holy smoke.
And I had a brand new 49 pickup with the old one with the fenders out, stuck out and that, and the pickup wasn't paid for, by the way. And he was hanging back there, and I knew any time he was going to come ahead pawing, and usually you don't have time for this. I took my knife and I cut the rope. Well, he fell on his, right, then he fell on his ass. Yeah. But anyway, he was still inside of a corral. Yeah. So anyway, we loaded him again, but hell, it was a chore. But the next time, I stayed in there with him. Norman tied him down. Then Norman said, "Come have some lunch." I said, "No damn way." I said, "I have that. I'll leave him sitting here. Hell, he'd tear my outfit apart."
Yeah, pickup's not paid for yet. So.
God, no. Oh, no. So then I headed for, coming out the back way from Dog Creek to Clinton. And a Cherry Creek, he was getting kind of ringy. He was moving back and forth, and I didn't know what to do. So I slammed on the brakes a little bit, easy, and it kind of straightened him out. And it wasn't long, and I was down to Tronquil and unloaded him. Yeah. And I was putting him in the barn, and Dave Caldo was there. I was going to put him in the stall. And I can't really imitate Dave that good, but he said, "Come on, Gent, you can't put that horse in that stall. You'll never get in alongside of him in the morning." So anyway, I put him in a box stall. They had a real good box stall, and I put him in there, and that's where he was.
He didn't get out of there?
Oh, hell, no, he never got out of there, no.
There's a song I love doing on stage with the Western Spirit Band, and it's inspired by my days on the drover crew of the Kamloops cattle drives. And the cattle would be in about a 10-acre trap a few miles from the main camp for the night. And the drover crew, well, we'd have breakfast at the wagon at about 3:30 in the morning, and by the first streaks of daylight, we'd mount up, our travel cups in hand, and trot out of camp single file to get the cattle. I'll never forget those special days with that crew. We hope to record this someday, but this is R.J. Vandegrift's version of Chuck Cosimano's great song.
We saddled our ponies and rode the big prairies. We suffered through winters and choked on the dust. We baked in the ovens of countless hot deserts and lived all the hardships that old cowboys must. We bathed in the waters of mountain spring rivers. We rode the bad horses, they were all that we had. We made meager wages and lost them to strangers and never considered we got treated bad. And oh, we were cowboys. We rode out of camp single file. And oh, we were cowboys. Thank God we were cowboys, at least for a while. Thank God we were cowboys, at least for a while. We got up at midnight for our turn at Nighthawk. We slept on the ground when we slept at all. We We had hardtack and jerky and Arbuckle's coffee and stayed with the wagon from spring until fall. And oh, we were cowboys. We rode out of camp single file. And oh, we were cowboys. Thank God we were cowboys at least for a while. Thank God we were cowboys at least for a while. We're being replaced now with pickups and feedlots. We're fighting the battle against progress and style. We're moving to cities and working in factories. Darn right, we were cowboys, at least for a while. And oh, we were cowboys. We rode out of camp single file. And oh, we were cowboys. Thank God we were cowboys at least for a while. Thank God we were cowboys at least for a while.
Well, that horse that Gid was talking about, Spider, was one that Red Allison knew about as well.
Do you remember that horse, Red?
Yeah, I remember the horse quite well, and there were a few boys that tried him already, a few of the cowboys up there, and they'd kind of given up on the horse. And so the boss then, Barbara Spencer, she said, you fellas just leave that horse alone. I've got a home for him. So anyway, one night before she had told us this, one of the boys that was there, he was bronc riding at the time, and he wanted to take a seat on him. So we had no chutes or anything, so we just used the round corral and got him saddled up, and I snubbed him on a gentle horse, and he got on him. And before I could turn the horse loose, he reached up. He was a lot bigger than the horse I was riding, and he just reared up and pawed right on top of my saddle horn. And then he took off bucking, but it wasn't a very big corral, and this boy was a pretty good bronc rider, so he sat on him all right. And then after that, Barbara said, you boys leave that horse alone. I've got a home for him, and he's leaving. So we never touched him anymore.
Did you ever come across a horse that you had to give up on, that you worked with him and there just was no hope for him?
Well, very, very seldom, because back in those days, the ornerier the horse was, the more you persevered with him, and it was sort of, I think, maybe a little bit of pride in those days that you could break one that somebody else had given up on, you know. But I've seen probably one or two that we gave up on that we thought just weren't worth getting hurt and everything else, but more in a little bit later years that we did that, because there were too many good horses around to bother with them. But in the early days, they were worth from 1/2 cent to 1 cent a pound if you shipped them, so you might just as well ride them and get something out of them, you know.
Well, there's more from the Drive of 93 with Red and Gint a little later. Next, Baxter Black and an innovative way to have your wife open the slipwire gates even if she's on crutches, when the Spirit of the West continues right after this.
Howdy, friends. This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan, and I'll be right back after this. Friends, thanks for listening. It'll be no surprise that I've published a beautiful new hardback book called A Commotion in Rhyme. It fits in the bunkhouse, the outhouse, the bookstore, the library, or the cookbook. Unfortunately, it won't fit in a cupcake. Buy two, get one free. A commotion? Oh. Call 800-654-2550 or baxterblack.com. Come to think of it, it might fit in a Caesar salad. I saw Ellie and George at the feed store the other day. She was wearing a walking cast on her left leg. She'd broken the dorsal tip off her fibula and pulled some tendons. It was the result of her perverse need to train young horses. She was in pain, and George was despondent. She couldn't drive, he said, so he had to haul her to town every day to do errands. I remarked she was the luckiest woman in the world to have an attentive and thoughtful man like him to wait on her hand and foot. Well, he agreed and had formulated a workout program for her so she wouldn't feel completely useless, another sign of his deep concern for her holistic well-being. He'd been devoting considerable mental energy trying to figure out the easiest way for her to open gates. It seemed that's what she missed the most. Well, I asked him how she got in the truck. Oh, he said he could back up to the loading chute and push her in with a wheelbarrow. He'd throwed a couple bales of straw in the back for her comfort. And getting out? I asked. Oh, easy as backing in the old chicken house and letting her grab one of the low-hanging rafters. He said it worked pretty good the second time, after he'd fixed the crossbeam. Well, I wasn't sure I understood how she managed to open the gate from the pickup bed. Well, he said that was one of the drawbacks. He had to back everywhere he went, and she still had trouble with wire gates. Well, how about some kind of big ramp? I suggested. She could drop it off the end of the tailgate and slide down. Maybe tie a piece of cotton rope to the gooseneck ball and pull herself back up. He'd already thought of that, but it took too long to drag herself around the pickup and back, not to mention the dirt and gravel that collected in her cast. As we speak, he informed me I'm working on a new idea. Jack's welded me a small A-frame with a boom on it. It'll bolt on the front bumper, and we're going to hang an old truck tire by a chain on the boom. She'll be able to swing sideways from one headlight to the other, open, close any gate I can get up to. He'd fixed her up with a pushing pole and a gaff hook. Should work slick as a whistle. He said she can do it all by herself. Have a sense of accomplishment. Yeah, and you won't have to get out of the pickup, I added. Yep, he said, I do what I can to build her self-esteem. This is Baxter Black on Spirit of the West with Hugh McLennan. Thanks for listening.
How about a weekend pass to the 23rd Annual Kamloops Cowboy Festival, March 14th to 17th, 2019. Just about the finest lineup of talent we've ever had. Michael Fleming.
On the back roads of Utah near the San Rafael, an old rough stock rider strides to the corral.
Gene Prescott.
Then he'd swing down from the saddle, and he'd take me in his arms.
Tim Huss.
The band's tuning up and they're stocking the bar. Ranchers are coming from near and far.
Special guest Lewis the Big Rig McIver, and so many more. The BC Cowboy Hall of Fame inductions, dinner shows, daytime entertainment, a spectacular art and gear show, workshops on everything from songwriting to saddle making. The best place to get all the information is bcchs.com. And to order tickets, call 1-888-763-2221. Now, just ahead of the Rangeland News, we are going to look back at a historical event and bring you two very different versions of what might have happened at the Battle of the Little Bighorn, Custer's last stand. I was digging through the vault last week, and I came up with this dusty old 45 RPM single that I used to play on CKOV radio in Kelowna back in about 1967, the year our youngest boy was born. Now, I thought this was a great fit for a morning show at that time, and this is the first of two songs about the same event, this one from Tommy Hunter.
Custer was tough and respected by the Indians because in his day he had polished off a few. But when his 200 men tackled 20,000 Indians, well, that was the day when he met his Waterloo. day when he should have stood in bed. One great company making history. Heroes all as sure as you were born. They were small in number, but all in the saddle, and they fell in the battle of the Little Bighorn. Major C thought that he ought to be the chief executive. For what he had done, he deserved to take a bow. But when he met Sitting Bull and his 40,000 Indians, he said to himself, I guess I'll never make it now. Well, he sure made a stand, though he never made another. And he yelled to his men, mount your horses and advance. But when he saw on the ridge over 50,000 Indians, he knew in his heart that he didn't have a chance. Brave Americans making history, heroes all as sure as you were born. They were small in number, but all in the saddle, and they fell in the battle of the Little Bighorn.
Now the news of the rangeland, a roundup of news and coming events from around the West.
At the top of page 1, this seems to be a little contradictory as we're coming out of a couple of extremely frigid weeks in our part of the West. But the big picture says we might be in for a very warm summer. And with more, here's Gary Crawford.
Globally, as far back as records go,
All 5 of the warmest years occurred during the last 5 years.
Agriculture Department meteorologist Brad Rippey says this past year ended up being the 4th warmest ever, and he says that's a little surprising because last year started with a La Nina in place. That's a cooling of waters in parts of the equatorial Pacific, and around the world, La Nina usually
Tends to cool the waters and also the land surfaces, so it's even more impressive to see a number 4 ranking during a year that started as a La Nina year.
Now, what's going to happen in 2019? Rippey says we've got an El Nino pattern developing.
That usually comes with more warmth, oceanic warmth, land warmth, and so already, even though we're only a little over a month into 2019, it is widely expected that this will be perhaps even warmer than 2018.
That's for the entire globe, but it could be true in the U.S. as well. Gary Crawford for the U.S. Department of Agriculture, Washington.
The world of rodeo lost another legend. We learned of the passing of Deb Copenhaver on the 8th of February. Deb was a close friend of Casey Tibbs, and he broke Casey's winning streak, capturing the world title in saddle bronc in 55 and 1956. And Deb's son Jeff was a 1975 world champion calf roper, and I'll never forget sitting in the stands of the old Edmonton Gardens in about 1956 or 57 at the indoor rodeo they called Edmonton's Rodeo of Champions. The end of the last go-round, Casey Tibbs and Deb Copenhaver were tied for the lead. So the judges, and I can't remember who they were, decided on a write-off. And so Casey and Deb drew for their broncs right there in the arena. I was sitting right behind Deb Copenhaver, and I could see the beads of sweat on his neck. Well, Casey won it by about 2 points. And I'm thinking the announcer there was probably the legendary Cy Talon. A group of Alberta farmers involved in an act of vigilante justice where at least 2 gunshots were fired in the air will not be facing charges. A constable with the Alberta RCMP said last week the Hanna RCMP detachment would not be laying charges against locals who banded together to track down a stolen vehicle last month. It happened on January 17th when 3 people fled from the Mounties near Brooks in a stolen truck before allegedly stealing another one from a garage 20 minutes north of Hanna. And a couple of shots were fired in the air by one of the ranchers in an attempt to stop an altercation with suspects who were stuck in a snowbank, according to the RCMP, and they said no one was injured when the shots were fired. A trio was arrested at the scene, and charges were laid in relation to the vehicle thefts. Well, March the 8th, I'll have Mike and Jim, the famous Western Spirit Band, along to entertain at the annual Grand Prairie, Alberta Farm Family Awards Banquet. And it's open to the public. For tickets, you can call 780-532-9727. And then we head right back to Kamloops for the 23rd Annual Cowboy Festival, March 14th to 17th. And this is breaking news. We are planning a special one-night concert with the Western Spirit along with Ben Crane and daughter Jessica at Withrow Church near Eckville, Alberta, west of Red Deer, on Wednesday, April the 24th. And you can see Ben's schedule at bencrane.com for tickets and information. And then the next day, April 25th, it's our second cruise reunion celebration at the Westerner in Red Deer, Alberta, with a bunch of folks who've been on our past cruises and their families and friends. For information, call 1-800-530-0131. And then, of course, the next day, the big main event Horse Expo gets underway. I'll be there for the Trainers Challenge again, April the 26th to the 28th at the Westerner. And then August the 16th to the 18th, we'll be there, the Western Spirit Band, at the Stony Plain Cowboy Gathering. For details, see stonyplaincowboygathering.com. And of course, August 29th to September the 14th, it's the 17th Annual Spirit of the West Cruise to the British Isles and France. You can call 1-800-530-0131 for details, or see our cruise page at hugh-mclennan.com. Next regular sale at the BC Livestock Co-op in Kamloops Yards is February the 25th. The next sale at Williams Lake, March 7th. And in Vanderhoof, it's March the 8th. Get all the details at bclivestock.bc.ca. Meanwhile, at the Innisfail Auction Market, Innisfail, Alberta, pre-sort sales on Mondays. They weigh the calves on Sundays. And the regular cattle sales, of course, every Wednesday, and lots of special events coming up. You can get the details on those at InnisfailAuctionMarket.com. Now, the final item. I had taken my old guitar along to a little visiting session with some neighbors a while back, and I sang some old cowboy songs, and there was a young fellow there, about 12 or so. And when I finished, he came up and said, "Hey, I play guitar too." And I said, "Oh, do you play like I do?" And he said, "Well, I used to." And that's the Rangeland News. Coming up on the Urban Saddles and Western Wear Horse Training File, a look at something important that can help prevent your horse from losing his footing when he's making a turn at a gallop on a side hill. And we'll have another song that tells a different story about Custer's last stand, when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. In this segment, we have the Urban Saddles and Western Wear Horse Training File, a song that tells a very different version of Custer's last stand than the one you just heard, and more from Red Allison and Gint Gilrick. First, though, here's what a few folks have said about the Spirit of the West cruises.
We had a lot of fun. One of the best cruises I've been on with you.
I've already put my deposit down for the next year's cruise, so sure we'll see you again.
Yeah, it's a good crowd.
I've met excellent people, and I couldn't ask for a better trip. The people were just like family. People look out for each other's, and it's great. It's a great experience.
And they're just dedicated to helping you enjoy your holiday. I think that's what I really like about cruising.
That's what makes it so nice, is that there are so many folks that are from the background, the way we were brought up on farms and ranches.
Our 2019 cruise will be something we've wanted to do for a long time. August 29th, we'll fly to Dublin, Ireland. We'll visit an Irish thoroughbred breeding farm, be hosted by the Irish Cattle Breeding Federation. Then we'll sail to some historic and beautiful places, Cork, Belfast, and then Glasgow and Inverness, Scotland. We might even get pictures of Nessie, the Loch Ness Monster. And we'll have stops in Paris and London. Get all the information at 1-800-530-0131. And check out our Spirit of the West cruise page at hugh-mclennan.com and our cruise Facebook page. How about a weekend pass to the 23rd Annual Kamloops Cowboy Festival, March 14th to 17th, 2019. Just about the finest lineup of talent we've ever had. Michael Fleming.
On the back roads of Utah near the San Rafael, and old rough stock riders drives to the corral.
Gene Prescott.
Then he'd swing down from the saddle he'd take me in his arms.
Tim Huss.
The band's tuning up and they're stocking the bar. Ranchers are coming from near and far.
Special guest Lewis the Big Rig McIver, and so many more. The BC Cowboy Hall of Fame inductions, dinner shows, daytime entertainment, a spectacular art and gear show, workshops on everything from songwriting to saddle making. The best place to get all the information is bcchs.com. And to order tickets, call 1-888-763-2221.
Now it's time for the Horse Training File, brought to you by Irvine Tack and Western Wear, Canada's largest Western store.
Experience the true spirit of the West at Canada's largest Western store, Irvine Tack and Western Wear. If you need a curb strap or a 4-star gooseneck trailer, you'll find it here. A saddle for every rider. Cutters, reiners, penners, trainers, work and ranch cowboys, ropers. They have over 1,200 in stock. And they have Western wear for the entire family. And how about a gift card? Shop online at irvinesaddles.ca. Free shipping on orders of over $100. irvinesaddle.ca, 1-877-946-9494. A guy with a good ranch horse was trying to head off a cow that had ducked out of the herd. The guy had to use a lot of speed and circle to the left down a side hill to catch the cow. And he'd always ridden with one hand on the reins. And in the situation, as the horse accelerated, he lost his balance and his feet went out from under him and he came down on his left side. The rider's leg was under the horse, and it wasn't broke, but it was pretty badly bruised. Now, this is a situation that can't always be prevented, but you can minimize the risk by making sure your horse does not drop his leading shoulder in a turn. It's something you can practice, actually, in an arena or out in the pasture, and it's kind of fun. But unless the horse is totally schooled and straight up on the bridle, you'll need to use two hands at times. Basically, as you lope a circle to the left, in the left lead, make sure that you're in sync with your seat and your hands and riding in the left lead position. Now, it's best if you're looking ahead and where you want to go, not down at his ears. And then, if you feel his left shoulder drop a bit, keep riding in rhythm, but lift your left direct rein, just enough to keep that shoulder elevated and the left front reaching out. And make sure you can keep the forward momentum going, and as soon as the horse is back in balance, then you can go back to having both reins in one hand. Now, if you're into a left turn at a lope going downhill, and your horse is in the right lead, I'd say drop to a trot and try to get him into the left lead. Trying to elevate the left shoulder when he's in the right lead on a side hill just increases the chances for a wipeout. And for Irvine Saddles and Western Wear, that's the Horse Training File. Something that we know keeps our horses feeling good and looking good, even at their advanced stage, is that daily feeding of Hoffman's Horse Ration. And you can find out all about it at hoffmanshorseration.com. Guess what happens Thursday, March the 14th at 7 a.m.? A bunch of happy Westerners will board a Frontier Bus Lines luxury coach in Red Deer, Alberta, heading for the 23rd annual Kamloops Cowboy Festival. Luxury motor coach transportation, 4 nights accommodation at the Coast Hotel and Conference Center, daily breakfast, Thursday evening dinner and dance, weekend pass to the Cowboy Festival, and 3 nights of dinner theater entertainment. What a great way to take in this best display of cowboy culture, Western history, and live entertainment in all the West. Just call Frontier Bus Lines, 1-888-LET'S-BUS. That's 1-888-538-7287. Well, the song, The Battle of the Little Bighorn from Tommy Hunter, brought back some memories, and one of them goes back to Cody, Wyoming a few years ago. I was down at an event called Cowboy Songs and Range Ballads at the Buffalo Bill Museum, and on the Saturday night I emceed a live show that was broadcast on radio station KODI. And the show featured the fine group David Wilkie and Cowboy Celtic, and David, in his wisdom, or lack of it, I thought was pushing things a little bit when he, right there in Wyoming, he had the group do a song he'd written called Custer Died A-Runnin'. Now, this theme that ran through Tommy Hunter's song and is being played here by Cowboy Celtic is an old Irish quickstep that goes back to the 1680s, was adopted by the 7th Cavalry Regiment, and it's known as Gary Owen.
You seen him on the silver screen with his yellow hair a-flying. Calmly he surveys the scene, a good day to be dying. Standing on the battlefield, his pistols just a-smoking. They said he was the last to yield, but they must have been joking. Like ants they swarmed on his command, like bees the bullets humming. No time for a final stand, Custer died a-running. They chased him up the hillside into bullets and confusion. The overwhelming landslide brought it to a quick conclusion. Just who fell first and who was last, there's no way to be knowing. But surely through the gates of hell he knew he was a-going. The devil's danced as he went down, a hail of arrows coming. Out on the wild Montana ground, Custer died a-running.
So what really happened in the Battle of the Little Bighorn isn't clearly known. There were obviously no cell phones or cameras to record what happened, but history says the fight was an overwhelming victory for Lakota, Northern Cheyenne, and Arapaho. The U.S. 7th Cavalry, a force of 700 men, suffered a major defeat under the command of Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer. 5 of the 7th Cavalry's 12 companies were annihilated and Custer was killed, as were 2 of his brothers, a nephew and a brother-in-law. The total U.S. casualty count included 268 dead, 55 severely wounded, and 6 died later from their wounds. And the battle and Custer's actions in particular have been studied extensively by scholars and historians, and the Little Bighorn Battlefield National Monument honors those who fought on both sides. It has, of course, made for a number of great Western movies and a couple of neat songs that you heard today. And now let's get back to that campfire conversation with Red Allison and Gint Gilrick. Gint recalled the days not that long ago when big herds of cattle and cowboys were a pretty common sight in the streets of what we call the heart of the West, Kamloops, British Columbia.
We worked for Alec Bullman at the Willow Ranch, and that was a evening drive and a morning drive, but we came right on down through town, down the old corkscrew it was called, between the old man's home and the hospital. And
not far from Peterson Creek.
Oh no, right down along Peterson Creek. Yeah. But we took them as far as Howard Humphrey's evening before, and next morning bright and early we went through town, down 8th Avenue and by old Billy Louie's, and by 9 o'clock or 8:30 while we were down at the yards. And these were grass-fed steers at that time. There were no feedlots, and all of your cattle were grass-fattened and that. But Alec Bullman had a real good field, grass up to their belly, you know, and it was saved just for fattening them steers and that. So, but we made several drives, like we picked out the best ones, and when we had them, why, they went to town with them. It wasn't that far. Then as it went along, we shipped the rest.
What I liked about what Alex said was that he figured one of the more efficient kind of cow outfits was what he called a rawhide outfit, where you could run most of it from the back of a good saddle horse, and you didn't have to get involved with a whole lot of machinery and stuff, but you had a couple of good riders, a couple of good horses, and a good dog or two. That was your main tools. And I still think maybe that's pretty good wisdom for a cowman today, even.
Well, it is a pretty good reason, but it's not all that easy to get a place like that.
No.
Yeah,
no.
You see, at one time, the Bullman lease, which was on the way to Pass Lake out of Kamloops, it was all open country, and you could get on that grass pretty early, and that's when they put the meat on your cattle. But it seemed like you had to get on a different type of grass to really finish them off.
Were the cattle much different then than what we're raising in our cow-calf operations today?
Oh, definitely. We were just the old breeds, you know, the Angus, the Hereford, the Shorthorn, and a few other breeds, maybe a little few crossbreeds or something, but basically they were the
You didn't have the Simmental and Charolais and Limousine influence and everything that you have today.
No, we had never seen those cattle up until then.
Those are memories I'll never forget, along with the Drover crew on the drive of 1993. Coming up, a long-lost classic song of the West and Ken Overcast in the Cowboy Poetry Spotlight when the Spirit of the West continues right after this. Welcome back to the Spirit of the West. This week's classic song of the West is one that was actually recorded on the old standard radio orthoacoustic transcriptions long before LPs and 45s were made. 78 singles were about all there was, so a lot of music and most radio programs and commercials were recorded on these discs. Jimmy Wakely was a popular singing cowboy of the late 40s and early 50s. He was a fine singer and nice voice, and the Jimmy Wakely Trio had a melodic blend of Jimmy's voice along with Dick Reinhardt and Johnny Bond, who was Gene Autry's lead guitar player until our friend Johnny Western took over. Now, this is one of those transcriptions with a song written by Johnny Bond, and maybe this will help chase that Gary Owen melody out of your eardrums, Out Where the Wind Blows Free.
There's a longing in the dawning over the long prairie. Can't you hear it? Can't you feel it? Out here the wind blows free. Tonight as I ride across the great divide, I feel in my heart a chill. Out here the wind blows free. There's a longing in the dawning over the lone prairie. Can't you hear it? Can't you feel it? Out here the wind blows free. Tonight as I ride across the great divide, I feel in my heart a chill. Out here the wind blows free.
You heard some neat stories from Montana rancher Ken Overcast last week, and Ken is in our Cowboy Poetry Spotlight now.
You know, Arnie ain't really a cowboy no more. Rumor has it he sold his cows and spends all his time a hugging on Shug and just laying around in the house. She taught him how to do windows and how to vacuum the floor. He don't think a cowboy's life is all that tough anymore. Give me 100-mile of fence to fix with my only tool, a rock. Give me some boots that are way too small and a couple of burrs in my sock. Give me a bronc that's hard to get on, the one with the squinty eyes. And that 3-year-old steer we couldn't corral with his back all covered with flies. Give me some cows to feed when it's 40 below with holes in the knees of my jeans. Or a roundup camp and having to batch and nothing to eat but beans. Give me some range full of prairie dog holes or maybe an alkali flat. 'Cause I got my fill of being a maid, I'll dang sure tell you that. This apron's a-getting binding. I got flour all over my boots. She's got me making cookies now and the boys all think it's a hoot. But come Friday I'm going to town. To the sale I'm making my break. I'm gonna buy every critter that comes through the door. I don't care what it takes. Prolapses, lump jaws, heifers, and steers, I'll trail them all back to the ranch. They'll make a herd, you wait and see. All they need is a chance. And then Shug can do her own mopping. Or she can hire a cleaning crew. It'll be plain as can be, she can't count on me. Honey, I got riding to do.
Yeah, me too. Well, as always, thank you so much for making the ride this week, and I sure hope you'll be back right here next week at the same time. Thanks again to the Spirit of the West support crew, Mark and Kathy McMillan, and remember, if you're looking for tractor parts, any make, any year, see Mark's page, bctractorparts.com. And to subscribe to Canadian Cowboy Country Magazine, just go to cowboycountrymagazine.com. And did you know that you can watch and listen to this program each week on your big screen TV? If it's got Wi-Fi or a Wi-Fi receiver, just go to the YouTube channel, SOTW55, and sit back and enjoy it. And if you've subscribed to our channel, well, that helps us too. Till next week, I am Hugh McLennan. Hope to see you down the trail somewhere real soon.